In 1885, in a small drugstore in Waco, Texas, a young pharmacist did something slightly strange. He stood at the soda fountain, breathed in deeply, and tried to bottle a smell. Charles Alderton loved the way the whole shop smelled when all the fruit syrups mingled together in the air, that warm, jumbled aroma of a Victorian pharmacy, and he decided to build a drink that tasted the way the room smelled. He blended and measured and adjusted, mixing an improbable number of flavors together, until he had something no one had ever tasted before. Customers started coming in and asking him to shoot them a Waco, and word of the strange, delicious new drink spread from stool to stool along the fountain counter. That drink, born a full year before Coca-Cola, would become the oldest major soft drink in America, wrapped in a secret recipe, a mysterious name nobody can fully explain, and a myth about prune juice that refuses to die. That sounds like a lot for a fizzy drink. But the fact that this soda predates Coke, survived by pretending to be medicine, talked a wartime government into calling it essential, and has just knocked a global cola giant off its throne tells you something. Dr. Pepper was never just a soda. It never was. So how did a drink invented to capture the smell of a drugstore become an American icon, older than Coca-Cola, with a name that remains a genuine historical mystery to this day? And how did the eternal underdog of the soda world, the one that isn't a cola and never pretended to be, finally climb to number 2? To understand that, you have to go back to the strange, wonderful world of the 19th century American pharmacy. In the 1880s, the local drugstore was the beating heart of an American town, and its most magical feature was the soda fountain. This was long before sodas were purely treats. The fizzy drinks served at these fountains were often sold as health tonics, medicinal pick-me-ups fizzing with ingredients meant to cure headaches, settle stomachs, and boost energy. The pharmacist was part chemist, part bartender, part doctor, and it was in exactly this world, at Morrison's old corner drugstore in Waco, that Charles Alderton went to work. Alderton was a trained pharmacist with a chemist's precision, and in his downtime he became fascinated by the fountain, and by the endless combinations of syrups the customers loved to mix. In fact, the very first bottled versions of the drink leaned hard into that medicinal image, sold under names that promised it was a brain tonic and an energizer, with labels boasting of wheat, iron and pepsin. Like so many drinks of the era, including Coca-Cola itself, Dr. Pepper began life dressed up as medicine before it was ever sold purely as a treat. The line between a soda and a cure in the 1880s was blurry to the point of being invisible. His breakthrough was that aroma. Alderton set out to recreate in a single glass the rich smell of all those fruit syrups blended together. He experimented endlessly, testing combination after combination, carefully noting proportions like the scientist he was, until he arrived at a blend of 23 distinct flavors. No single fruit dominated. Instead, the flavors merged into something entirely new, a taste that was sweet and fizzy, but also somehow spicy, warm, and impossible to pin down. To this day, people struggle to describe what Dr. Pepper actually tastes like, and that is precisely the point. It was designed from the very beginning to be a flavor you could not quite name. He tried it on his boss, the store's owner Wade Morrison, who loved it. They tried it on the fountain regulars, who loved it too. Soon people all over Waco were coming in for the mysterious new drink, ordering it by asking to be shot to Waco. It became so popular that other drugstores around town wanted to serve it, and Alderton, a modest man who considered himself an inventor rather than a businessman, happily handed the formula over to Morrison and a beverage chemist named Robert Lazenby to develop. Alderton went back to being a pharmacist. He never sought fame or fortune from the drink he had created, and he remains one of the most low-key inventors of any world-famous product. But the drink needed a real name, and here we arrive at one of the great unsolved mysteries in the history of food and drink. Because nobody actually knows for certain how Dr. Pepper got its name. What we do know is that Wade Morrison chose it. After that, the trail dissolves into legend. The Dr. Pepper Museum in Waco says it has collected more than a dozen different stories, none of them confirmed. The most popular tale is romantic. It claims Morrison named the drink after a real doctor, a Dr. Charles Pepper of Virginia, either out of gratitude because Pepper had once given the young Morrison a job, or, in the juicier version, because Morrison had been in love with Dr. Pepper's daughter, and named the soda to win over her disapproving father. It is a lovely story. It also has very little hard evidence behind it, and some of the details do not line up with the historical record. Other theories are more mundane, that pep referred to the pep, the energy, the drink was supposed to give you, tapping into that era's love of energizing tonics. Adding doctor to a product was itself a common marketing trick of the time, meant to make something sound healthy and authoritative. The honest truth is that the origin of one of the most famous brand names on earth is simply lost to history. The name is a mystery wrapped around a secret recipe, and that mystery is baked into the brand's identity. In an age when companies spend fortunes on focus groups and consultants to engineer the perfect name, there is something wonderful about the fact that the world's oldest major soft drink got its name from a source no one can now identify, in a story no one can now verify. Dr. Pepper doesn't know its own origin story, and it has turned that not knowing into part of its charm. There is one small detail about the name we can pin down though. For its first several decades, it was written Dr. Pepper, with a period after the doctor, exactly as you'd abbreviate a real doctor. Then in the 1950s, the period vanished. The official reason was a matter of design. In the slanted, stylized logo of the era, the period got squeezed between the letters, making Dr. Pepper look like it read D. Pepper, a smudgy, confusing mess. So the company simply dropped the period. To this day, it is officially Dr. Pepper, no period, a tiny piece of graphic design history frozen into a global trademark. If you are finding this video interesting, hit subscribe. We dig into the hidden histories behind drinks every week, and you will not want to miss what is coming next. Now, before we go further, we have to confront the myth, because if you have heard one thing about Dr. Pepper, it is probably the whispered rumor that it is made with, or even mostly consists of, prune juice. Generations of Americans have grown up absolutely certain that Dr. Pepper is basically carbonated prune juice, and that it will, let us say, keep you regular. It is one of the most persistent food myths in America, and it is completely false. The Dr. Pepper company has flatly and repeatedly denied that there is any prune juice in the recipe, and there never has been. So where did the rumor come from? The best guess traces back to the 1930s, when a rival salesman, trying to make Dr. Pepper sound unappealing, allegedly asked potential customers something like, "You don't want to sell that prune juice, do you?" The smear stuck, and it has clung to the drink for the better part of a century. The truth is that the flavour comes from that secret blend of 23 ingredients, and prune is not one of them. But the myth is so powerful that no amount of official denial has ever fully killed it. That is the strange fate of a drink built on mystery. People fill the gaps with their own stories. The recipe itself remains one of the most closely guarded secrets in the food world, right up there with the formula for Coca-Cola. The company will only say it is a proprietary blend of 23 flavours. Fans and chemists have spent decades trying to guess them, tossing out cherry, licorice, caramel, vanilla, almond, blackberry, and a dozen more, but the exact list and the exact proportions have never been officially revealed. Legend has it the full formula is split into two halves, kept in two separate safe deposit boxes in two different banks, so that no single person and no single break-in can ever expose the whole thing. A trick famously also told about Coca-Cola. Whether or not that is literally true, it captures the spirit perfectly. Dr. Pepper, from its very first glass, has always kept its cards close to its chest. Dr. Pepper's big national breakout came in 1904 at the Great St. Louis World's Fair, the same fair that helped popularize the hamburger and the ice cream cone. There, Dr. Pepper was introduced to millions of visitors from across the country, and the little Texas drugstore drink began its march toward becoming a national brand. Riding that success, it picked up grand nicknames like the King of Beverages, and was even advertised as liquid sunlight, promising to fill drinkers with vim, vigor, and vitality. The tonic-era language of health and energy clung to it long after the actual medicine had been stripped out of the bottle. But the moment that truly defined Dr. Pepper for generations came in the 1920s and the 30s, with one of the strangest and most brilliant marketing campaigns in history. The company had embraced the old tonic-era idea that its sugary drink gave people a genuine energy boost. So in 1927, it leaned on a study by a Columbia University researcher named Dr. Walter Eddy, who claimed that the average person's blood sugar and energy dipped at 3 predictable times each day, around 10:30 in the morning, 2:30 in the afternoon, and 4:30. The company held an internal contest to turn this into a slogan, and the winner produced a line that would define the brand for decades. Drink a bite to eat at 10, 2, and 4. Suddenly, Dr. Pepper wasn't just a drink. It was a scheduled daily energy fix, scientifically timed. Those 3 numbers, 10, 2, and 4, were plastered onto bottles, signs, delivery trucks, and a famous clock-face logo that hung in shop windows all across America. An entire generation learned what Dr. Pepper was from those little clocks reading 10, 2, and 4. It is a masterpiece of marketing because it did something almost magical. It invented a reason to buy the product 3 separate times every single day, and dressed that reason up in the authority of science. Never mind that drink more sugar when you feel tired is exactly the kind of advice a soda company would want to be true. The genius was in making a daily habit feel like doctor's orders, and that energy food idea paid off spectacularly during the Second World War. When sugar was severely rationed and soft drink makers had their supplies slashed, Dr. Pepper's leadership marched to the government's rationing board, armed with that energy research, and argued that soft drinks were not a frivolous luxury, but an essential source of quick energy for soldiers and war workers. They even produced a booklet called The Liquid Bite to make the case. Remarkably, it worked. The board granted soda bottlers a sugar quota, allowing them to keep producing through the war. Dr. Pepper had literally convinced the United States government that fizzy sugar water was essential to the war effort. After the war, Dr. Pepper kept reinventing how it talked about itself, always circling the same core idea, that it was different, unusual, not like the other sodas. In the 1950s, it was the friendly pepper-upper. It rode the rise of rock and roll and appeared on Dick Clark's American Bandstand. It even remarkably marketed itself as a hot drink, promoting hot Dr. Pepper, served warm with a slice of lemon, as a cozy winter beverage, an idea that never quite caught on but perfectly captures the brand's willingness to be strange. And crucially, throughout all of this, Dr. Pepper insisted on one thing above all. It was not a cola. This was more than an attitude, it was a legal and commercial identity. Because Dr. Pepper was not a cola, it did not directly compete with Coke or Pepsi in the same category, which cleverly allowed it to be bottled and distributed by both Coca-Cola and Pepsi bottlers around the country. Being the odd one out was, quite literally, a business strategy, and it turned Dr. Pepper into the drink you reached for precisely when you were tired of choosing between the 2 colas. That outsider identity reached its glorious peak in the 1970s. First, Dr. Pepper called itself the most misunderstood soft drink, turning its own hard-to-describe flavour into a badge of honour. And then, in 1977, came the campaign that lodged the brand permanently into pop culture, Be a Pepper. In a series of exuberant television commercials, a young actor named David Norton danced and sang his way through the streets, leading crowds in the impossibly catchy jingle. I'm a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper, we're a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too? It was joyful, a little goofy, and absolutely everywhere. Being a pepper wasn't about following the crowd toward Coke or Pepsi. It was about joining a cheerful club of individualists. The campaign helped push Dr. Pepper to become one of the top soft drink brands in the country. And to this day, if you hum that tune to someone of a certain age, they can finish it instantly. But behind the joyful jingles, Dr. Pepper was also becoming a corporate football, passed from owner to owner in the churning world of the beverage business. Over the decades, the once independent Texas company was bought, sold, merged, and restructured again and again. It joined forces with 7-Up to become Dr. Pepper 7-Up. It was swallowed by the British confectionery giant Cadbury Schweppes. It was spun back out as the Dr. Pepper Snapple Group. And then, in 2018, in a colossal deal worth around $18 billion, it merged with the coffee company Keurig to form a beverage behemoth called Keurig Dr. Pepper. The little drink born at a Waco soda fountain was now part of one of the largest drinks companies in North America. Yet even as the corporation ballooned, Dr. Pepper never lost its cult of devoted fans. And nowhere was that devotion stranger or more passionate than in the tiny town of Dublin, Texas. The bottling plant there had been making Dr. Pepper since 1891, making it the oldest Dr. Pepper bottler in the world. And crucially, long after the rest of the industry switched to cheaper high-fructose corn syrup, the Dublin plant kept making its Dr. Pepper the old-fashioned way, with pure imperial cane sugar. Dublin Dr. Pepper became a legend. Fans and collectors drove across the country to buy cases of it. Restaurants advertised that they served the real cane sugar version, and the town threw a giant Dr. Pepper birthday bash every year. It was for soda lovers a kind of pilgrimage site, a taste of how the drink was supposed to be. But in 2012, the story turned sad. The parent company sued the Dublin bottler over selling its cane sugar Dr. Pepper outside its assigned territory, and the dispute ended with the parent company taking over the Dublin operation and shutting down its production of the beloved original recipe drink. Fans were heartbroken. A small piece of authentic history had been swallowed by the corporate machine, and the most cherished version of Dr. Pepper vanished from the shelves. It was a small, bittersweet reminder that the quirky little drugstore drink was now a global corporate product, and that sometimes the demands of a trademark and a distribution map win out over more than a century of local tradition. And yet the story of Dr. Pepper has a genuinely triumphant final act, at least so far. For its entire existence, more than a century, Dr. Pepper was the beloved underdog, forever trailing behind the two giants, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, locked in their endless cola wars. Dr. Pepper was the quirky third choice, the regional favourite, the drink for people who didn't want a cola. And then quietly, the underdog climbed the mountain. Over years of steady growth, driven by clever marketing, a wave of new flavours, and a broader cultural embrace of the sweet and spicy taste it had pioneered a century earlier, Dr. Pepper crept up on the leaders. And in data from 2023, it finally happened. Dr. Pepper edged past Pepsi to become the second best-selling soft drink in the entire United States, behind only Coca-Cola. The drink that famously was not a cola had beaten one of the two great colas at its own game. For decades, the story of American soda was the Cola Wars, a two-way slugfest between Coke and Pepsi, with everyone else fighting for scraps. Then the quiet Texan that had spent a century being the third choice simply walked past one of the titans. Part of it was patience and marketing, especially a huge bet on college football. But part of it was that the wider culture finally caught up to Dr. Pepper's whole idea. The trendy, modern craving for flavours that are sweet and spicy at once, sometimes called swicy, describes exactly what Alderton built back in 1885. Dr. Pepper didn't chase the trend. It had simply been waiting, patiently, for about 140 years, for the world to come around to it. The Cola Wars, in a sense, were won by the drink that refused to be a cola at all. Today, Dr. Pepper is a genuine American giant, sold around the world, endlessly reinvented into new flavours, from cherry to cream soda to strawberries and cream, while the mysterious original blend of 23 flavours carries on exactly as it has for well over a century. It has a museum devoted to it in Waco, In the very city where Charles Alderton first tried to bottle the smell of a drugstore, it has fans who tattoo its logo on their skin. And it still guards its secrets, its recipe, and even the true story of its own name as fiercely as ever. So the next time you crack open a Dr. Pepper, that dark, fizzing, sweet and spicy taste that you can never quite describe, remember what it actually carries. It carries a young pharmacist trying to bottle the smell of a room, and a drink that beat Coca-Cola into the world by a full year. It carries a name that nobody can truly explain, a lovesick legend about a doctor's daughter, and a missing full stop dropped for the sake of a logo. It carries a prune juice rumour that will not die, a Columbia study that turned soda into a scheduled snack, and a company that convinced a nation at war that fizzy sugar was essential. It carries dancing peppers, a heartbroken Texas town that lost its cane sugar original, and the long, patient climb of an underdog that waited a century and then finally toppled a giant. The little drugstore drink built entirely on mystery, the soda that was never a cola and never wanted to be, is sitting in your hand right now, sweet and strange and utterly ordinary, waiting to be noticed. Dr. Pepper was never just a soda. It never was, and it never will be. If this story surprised you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories behind drinks. We have got a lot more coming.